Hi, my name is Dawn and welcome to my kitchen. Today we are making a spicy chicken stir fry. This recipe comes to us from bonappetit.com and my friend Della put me onto it when her husband first made it. So we actually call it Bill's Chicken in our house, and if I say that then my husband knows what we're having. It is a easy and straightforward recipe that's very flexible and you can make it like you like. As with most stir fries, you want to get everything prepped in advance, and then the cooking comes very quickly. It also reheats fantastic. So let's get going. First, let's start with our ingredients. We need soy sauce. We'll need cornstarch. We're going to need granulated sugar. And we're going to need kosher salt. Now, for each of these ingredients, they are going to be used twice in the recipe. So just remember not to put it away until you've used it for your second time. Also, you'll see that I put my measuring tools in my salt, so I know to use it first before I start measuring the liquid ingredient. This is a chicken stir fry, so I've got chicken breasts. The recipe calls for chicken thighs. Use whatever you have or like, and I've even used it with pre-cooked rotisserie chicken or barbecue chicken, and it's fantastic. You just throw it in already cooked, so you'll skip the cooking part and just advance after that. We'll need sambal olik. I think that's how you say it. I don't know, but it's nice and spicy. That's what gives it a lot of spice. Rice wine vinegar. We'll need garlic, and for those of you who watch that know, I usually buy the pre-packaged peeled garlic. I've had some bad experience with it. It went bad too quickly, so I'm back to using the regular garlic. We'll need ginger, green onions or scallions, celery, dates, cilantro. We're going to use both the leaves and the stems, vegetable oil, and peanuts. You want them already roasted and salted, or you can use raw, just whatever you've got. I have these, I keep these in my freezer. So that is our ingredients. Now let's pull together our tools. For measuring, we are going to use a 1 teaspoon and half teaspoon for twice, but it's going to get wet. So I pulled out a second 1 teaspoon because we're going to use those again. And I've got a 1 tablespoon measure. We'll need about a medium-sized bowl for marinating our chicken. I pulled out a 1 cup measure for making our sauce. And I've got a fork for stirring the sauce. We'll use a medium bowl just to hold all our chopped vegetables so we can easily have them together and transported to our stove. I pulled out a smaller bowl to put in our cilantro when we chop it. And I pulled out a 3/4 cup measure to measure our peanuts. And I pulled out my scale because I'm going to want to measure the weight of the dates. I'll be stir frying it on the stove in my largest non-stick skillet with high sides because it'll need the room. And just grab your favorite tool for stir frying in the pan. In this case, I have this very old plastic, doesn't scratch, and it's nice and wide, so I can do lots of stirring. And finally, I will need my chopping board and my knife. Okay, now let's get going. In making this recipe, it looks like a lot of steps and a lot of stuff, but you get it all prepped and you can do it in advance. I'm gonna do it, we're gonna eat dinner. You can do it either way, but it really is delicious and it's worth the effort to get this done. So first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna make the marinade for the chicken. So grab your medium bowl. And because the recipe as written on the website starts with the liquid ingredient, I'm going to start with the dry and go up to the liquid. So you need half a teaspoon of kosher salt. You're going to need half a teaspoon of sugar. And you're going to need 1.5 teaspoons of cornstarch. And to this, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of our soy sauce. Want to give it a quick stir, and I'm just going to use the measuring spoon. Just want to get it mixed up. What this marinade is going to do is it's going to tenderize our chicken. Now, we would normally put our chicken in right now, but I want to chop up my chicken last So I'm going to put the marinade aside and move on to our sauce. For the sauce, we start with a 1/4 cup of our soy sauce. And to this, we are going to add a 1/4 cup of water. Now, the water's not listed as an ingredient, so make sure you note that because it is in the written instructions. But I think the first time I made this, I missed that part, and it still turned out really good, but it's better if you put the water in. And to this, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of the cornstarch. And 1 teaspoon of the sugar, 3 tablespoons of the sambal. And if you don't have sambal, but you have some other spicy condiment, go ahead and use that. I have used gochujang and others that I've had in my fridge, so use what you've got. And 2 tablespoons of rice wine vinegar. And with the fork, just give it a little stir because you want that cornstarch to dissolve. This cornstarch is going to be our thickening agent for our sauce. So I'm going to move this over to the stovetop. Okay, let's chop up the veg. So it calls for 4 cloves of garlic. So I've grabbed a small bowl and I'm just going to mince my garlic. And then the recipe calls for about 2 inches of ginger, finely chopped. And you can peel it or not. And I'm going to peel it today, but you don't have to, and perfectly fine to eat the peel and cook with the peel. I know you can peel ginger with a spoon, but I find this faster. Make sure you chop it fine because nobody really likes a big piece of ginger in their meal. And we'll take this bowl and move it to our stove. And now we need 6 scallions or green onions. So for your 6 green onions, you're going to want to cut them into 1/2 inch crosswise pieces. And to this we add 4 celery stalks. So for our celery stalks, just trim off the ends, the rough ends, and the very tops. Now you can reuse the leaves as a garnish. I actually have some here, but I never do that. So I'm just gonna chop off the ends here. So for each one of these, what you want to do is you want to cut it lengthwise and then just roughly chop them. So no real rules, so just get them into bite-sized pieces. And to this, we are going to add about 4 ounces or 113 grams of dates. Now, it calls from medjool dates, which I have. So this is a new package of them, and I always have different types of dates. So what I'm going to do is they have pits in them. So if yours don't have pits in them, you can just chop them up. But I'm just going to weigh out about 113, and I'll go slightly over for the pit. It says about 4 for me, 2, 4, 6. I've used 7. And of course, if you already have pitted dates, you're off to the races. So I'm just going to pull out all the dates, and then I'm just going to roughly chop them, which you'll see is not that easy because dates are very sticky, but they add a great taste to this. So do whatever you want, but I say don't skip these. I'm not even going to chop these because I think it's just going to make my knife messy. I think I'm just going to rip them. And now we take this bowl and move it to our stove. So I've grabbed my little bowl here for my cilantro, And as I said, we're using both the leaves and the stems because the stems are very tender, but I am going to cut the ends off. And the recipe says to use 1.5 cups. And honestly, all I do is I just chop up a bunch. Now, I think they're telling you that in case you get a giant bunch or a very small bunch. Now, they want you to save some of it for the topping. We'll see if I remember. If I'm just making it for home, we're not doing it fancy, so I just throw it all in at once. But you just want to coarsely chop these. And now we move this to the stove. Do you see the theme? Now, just before I cut up my chicken, I'm going to move my oil to the stove along with 3/4 cup of the peanuts. So I like to do my chicken last because then I can put my cutting board in the dishwasher. But if you have 2 cutting boards, you can do it that way. We will want the chicken to marinate a bit in the marinade, but I like to do this step last. Okay, so you want to cut your chicken into 1/2-inch pieces. Okay, and then we just put it into our marinade and give it a little stir. Now the recipe assumes that you're going to do all your chopping and making of your sauce, so if you're like me and you're doing this at the end, I'm going to let this sit for about 10 or 15 minutes in my fridge so the marinade can do its job, and then I'll meet you at the stove. It also gives me time to clean up. And also grab a small plate or bowl that we're going to put the cooked nuts on once we get them cooked. Okay, now that we're at our stove, you can see that I've organized everything. We're going to be starting with the peanuts and the oil, then we'll have our garlic and our ginger, then our chicken, then the veg, our sauce, and finally our cilantro. So we've got it all organized here and ready to go. So let's get cooking. So before you get started, you have to have everything here because it goes by super fast. Don't get caught out. So first thing that we do is we heat our oil to a medium-high heat. And then we'll add our peanuts. And we're going to cook them till they're very brown. This will take between 5 and 7 minutes, depending on your cooktop. Okay, can you see how brown they are? Do not wait for all of them to get browned fully because you will get burnt ones. So we don't want that. So quickly scoop these out and put them on your plate. And get every last little one of them out of there. And to our pan now we're going to add our garlic and our ginger, and this is going to kick up really fast. So you just want to give that 30 seconds. So after your 30 seconds, then you want to toss in your chicken. And we're going to cook this for about 3 minutes. Break it out, make sure the pieces are all separated out, and it'll cook for about 3 minutes. You don't have to cook it all the way through because it's going to cook some more with veggies and we don't want it to overcook. Okay, and now that our 3 minutes are up, we're going to add our vegetables. And we're going to stir fry this, keep stirring for about 2 minutes. That's what the recipe says. I end up always cooking it a little bit longer because I really want the celery to cook and not be so crunchy. And make sure you get your dates all broken out so that everyone gets some dates. Okay, after the 2 minutes, grab one of your pieces of your celery, grab a bigger one, and I'm going to have a little taste test and see how crunchy it is. I grabbed a fork. Yeah, I always need about another minute. This is a little too crunchy for me, but we are going to cook it for 2 more minutes in the sauce, but I want it a little bit more cooked. Okay, now when you've got it to where you like it, grab your sauce. Now, give your sauce a real good stir because that cornstarch has all settled in the bottom and we don't want that. We want it all incorporated and pour this over and cook it for 2 more minutes. You want to stir it pretty frequently, and you want to see that it becomes this super glossy sauce all over your chicken. Takes about 2 minutes. Okay, look at that. It's all thickened up and shiny and glossy. Just what we want. So now at this point we're going to remove it from the stove and add our peanuts and cilantro. So I moved these to the stove because I would do it normally, but I moved it over here just to show you. So we just add our peanuts and our cilantro and stir it all together. And it is ready to eat. Now you can taste it and see if you need any salt. But I have never had to add salt to this, ever. You can eat this by itself. You can eat it over rice. You can eat it over vegetables if you're doing low carb. Whatever you like. It's just a super fantastic entree. Just a little bit of chopping, that's all. This is still pretty hot, but I need to taste it to see if I need to add anything to it. Ooh, this is so good. I can't wait to eat it. We're having it for dinner in just a few minutes. I hope you give this recipe a try, and until next time, keep cooking.